You're really bringing a sick kid to work? Again? Jenna didn't answer. She just held Noah tighter, feeling the heat of his fever through her blouse. I swear, her supervisor hissed, you people always bring your problems where they don't belong. The rain was relentless. Jenna had just been fired, again, for doing what any mother would, protecting her sick son. No home, no umbrella, no one even looked twice. Then out of nowhere, a man stepped beside her. He said just one thing. No one who tries that hard deserves to walk in the rain. That moment changed everything. Stay until the end to see how one quiet act reshaped 3 lives forever. Jenna Monroe had always prided herself on being dependable. First in, last out. Reports polished, deadlines met. She wasn't the loudest voice in the room, but no one could deny. Jenna got things done, and she did it all alone. There was no partner waiting at home, no grandparents who could help, just Jenna and her 5-year-old son Noah, whose asthma had turned severe that winter. That morning, Noah had woken up with labored breathing and fever-soaked hair. Jenna had tried everything, called in favors, checked with neighbors, but no one could watch him, and she couldn't afford to lose another shift. Rent was already 3 days late, so she wrapped Noah in her coat, tucked his inhaler into her purse, and whispered, "It's just a few hours, baby. Mama's gonna finish her work, then we'll go home." She never expected what would happen next. The meeting was mid-morning. Jenna sat quietly at the edge of the long glass table, Noah dozing against her shoulder, face flushed. She kept him wrapped in her scarf, hoping to go unnoticed. But corporate doesn't miss anything out of place, and neither did Letitia Graham, the regional manager flown in from New York. The moment Letitia saw Noah, she stopped mid-sentence. "Why is there a child in this meeting?" Jenna stood halfway. "I'm so sorry. My son's sick. I didn't have anyone to watch him. I just needed to finish my shift." Letitia's eyes narrowed. "Comp policy is very clear. This is not a daycare. You've put everyone at risk by bringing a sick child into the building." "I understand, but please, I couldn't leave him alone." Letitia didn't blink. "You're terminated, effective immediately." The words sliced through the room like ice. No one spoke. Not the interns Jenna had mentored, not the colleagues she'd stayed late to help. She stood frozen for a moment, then quietly gathered her bag, cradled Noah closer, and walked out. The doors hissed shut behind her. Outside, the city was unforgiving. The rain came in sheets, icy, constant, unbothered by human misery. Jenna's heels splashed into puddles as she descended the concrete steps, Noah shivering against her chest. She had no umbrella. Her coat was too thin. Her blouse clung to her back like wet paper. "Mama!" Noah whimpered, his voice hoarse. "I know, sweetheart," she whispered. "I know." People passed, umbrellas high, collars pulled tight. Some glanced at her, most didn't. She could have been invisible. Maybe she was. By the time she reached the corner, her arms ached from holding Noah. His breathing had become shallow again. Jenna pressed her cheek to his forehead, hot as fire. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she pressed forward through the storm, soaked to the bone, whispering one promise like a chant into the downpour. "We're going to be okay. Mama's not giving up." But as the wind howled around her and her child coughed softly in her arms, even Jenna wasn't sure she believed it anymore. The eviction notice came 3 days after she was fired. Jenna had known it was coming. The rent was already overdue. But holding it in her trembling hand still felt like the ground had split beneath her. With no paycheck, no savings, and no family to call, she packed what she could into 2 duffel bags, slung Noah's small backpack over her shoulder, and walked out into the bitter dusk. They spent the first night in the emergency room waiting area. Jenna pretended she was waiting to be seen, hoping no one would question why she sat in the corner all night with a sleeping child in her lap. But by morning, they were asked to leave. Then came the gas station. It was open 24 hours, warm, and anonymous enough that no one paid too much attention, until Noah's coughing started to draw stares. That night, Jenna found herself huddled in the restroom, the flickering fluorescent light buzzing above her as she sat on the cold tile floor. Noah lay across her lap, his small chest rising and falling in short, panicked breaths. His inhaler, nearly empty, shook in her hand. Come on, baby, she whispered, voice cracking. Just one more breath, like the lion we read about, remember? Strong and brave. Noah wheezed, eyes fluttering. Jenna counted softly to 10, holding the inhaler to his mouth. Her hands shook so badly she could barely press down. She blinked back tears as the panic surged in her chest. This wasn't how it was supposed to be. Suddenly, the door creaked. A short, gray-haired woman in a faded cleaning uniform peeked in. Her name tag read Maribel. She didn't say anything at first, just took in the sight. The trembling woman, the sick boy, the look of someone barely holding it together. Maribel disappeared without a word. Minutes later, she returned with a plastic chair, an old pillow, and a folded fleece blanket that smelled faintly of lavender. I used to be where you are, she said gently in Spanish. You can stay here tonight. No one comes in much after midnight. Jenna stared at her, lips parted, unsure if she was hearing right. Maribel simply nodded, placing the items down. You just need one person to see you. That's how I got out. Maybe I can be that person. That night, Jenna and Noah stayed hidden in the employee restroom. It wasn't much, but it was warm, and it was safe. The next day, Jenna returned to thank Maribel. Before she could finish, Maribel handed her a mop and a bucket. Come back tonight, she said. Floors need cleaning. It pays almost nothing, but it's something. Jenna blinked. You're offering me work? Maribel shrugged. I'm offering you a start. And so it began. Every night, after the customers left and the neon signs buzzed low, Jenna mopped floors and scrubbed toilets with raw, blistered hands. Noah slept on the bench in the back, wrapped in the lavender blanket, breathing easier now thanks to a $7 inhaler she'd bought from the last bit of pawn jewelry. It was brutal, humiliating, exhausting, but it was something to hold on to in the middle of a storm that threatened to take everything. And every night before she picked up the mop, she'd kiss Noah's forehead and whisper the same words. Sleep well, little lion. Mama's still fighting. Maribel showed up the next morning with a thermos of warm soup, a piece of buttered toast, and something folded neatly in half. A janitorial company across town is hiring, she said, sliding the flyer across the table in the gas station break room. Afternoon shift, no diploma needed, might be steadier than mopping here. Jenna looked down. Silencia Services, now hiring, no experience required. A sliver of hope pricked her chest, fragile and frightening. You think they'd take someone like me? Jenna asked, her voice flat from too many rejections. Maribel smiled softly. They might not see what others do, but maybe they see more than most. That afternoon, Jenna took 2 buses across town with Noah curled against her side. The building was small, tucked between an old laundromat and a pawn shop. She could smell lemon cleaner even before they stepped through the glass doors. Inside, the lobby was plain, but clean. A plastic fern in the corner, a receptionist tapping at a keyboard, a sign-in clipboard with a pen chained to it. Jenna signed her name and sat down in a faded plastic chair. Noah, wheezing softly, leaned his head against her arm. She tucked the flyer into her bag and took the application form the receptionist handed over. Her hands shook as she filled it out. Name, address, emergency contact. Have you ever been terminated from a job? She stared at the checkbox. Her pen hovered. She checked yes. A quiet cough startled her. Noah clutched his little inhaler, but it was nearly empty. His eyes looked up at her, tired but trusting. I'm okay, Mama, he whispered. Jenna swallowed hard. Just a little more, baby. She tried to shield him with her coat so the receptionist wouldn't see, but it was too late. The woman gave a polite, forced smile and looked away. At that moment, a man pushed through the side door. He looked different. Not polished like a CEO, but purposeful. Worn jeans, rolled sleeves, phone in one hand, key ring in the other. Salt and pepper stubble lined his jaw. He looked like he hadn't slept much and didn't care. As he crossed the lobby, he slowed. His eyes landed on Jenna, then on Noah. For a second, just a second, his entire expression shifted. Jenna recognized it. Not pity, not judgment. Something deeper, like recognition. But then, just as quickly, the mask returned. He gave a small, respectful nod and kept walking. Jenna blinked, wondering if she imagined the flicker in his eyes. She finished the form, signed it, and handed it in with a quiet thank you. No one said much. She didn't expect they would. She'd filled out too many of these already. The next afternoon, her phone buzzed. She stared at the unknown number for a long time before answering. Hello? Hi, is this Ms. Monroe? This is Elena from Silencia Services. Jenna sat up straighter. Her heart thudded. Yes, this is she. We reviewed your application. We'd like to offer you a part-time position on our afternoon custodial team. You'd start tomorrow. Jenna froze. Really? She whispered. Yes. And we understand your situation. If you need to bring your son with you for now, that's okay. We have a break room where he can stay as long as he's safe. The line went quiet. Jenna pressed her hand over her mouth. Tears welled. She looked at Noah, who was curled on the blanket Maribel had given them, coloring superheroes with a broken crayon. She choked back a sob and whispered into the phone. Mama's working again. Jenna's first week at Silencia Services was quiet, steady, and, most of all, dignified. The uniform didn't bother her, nor did the smell of bleach or the hours on her feet. What mattered was that Noah was safe, resting on a small couch in the break room with his sketch pad while she scrubbed tiles and emptied trash bins. The staff were kind, many speaking in soft blends of English and Spanish. Elena, the supervisor, showed her how to refill dispensers and operate the buffer. No one stared at Noah. No one complained. And that was enough. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Jenna walked into the break room to check on Noah and stopped in the doorway. His eyes were wide. Spread out on the table before him was a brand new box of colored pencils, two thick comic books with crisp covers, and a small stuffed lion with a crooked grin. Noah looked up at her, glowing. Mama, where did this come from? Jenna stepped forward, stunned. She turned the pencil box over looking for a note. There was none. She opened a comic and flipped through the glossy pages. Pristine, new, untouched. I don't know, she said softly. Can I keep them? Jenna nodded slowly, her throat tightening. Yes, baby. Of course. Later during her break, she asked around casually. Elena, the other custodians, even the receptionist. Everyone shook their heads. No idea, Elena said, smiling. Maybe someone saw him drawing and wanted to help. Jenna whispered a quiet thank you to the air, though she didn't know who it was meant for. But down the hall, through a slightly open office door, Elias Monroe stood silently, watching. He had passed the break room just moments before, on his way to a conference call. He had seen Noah reach for the pencils with trembling hands and a soft, stunned joy. And something in him had cracked open. He hadn't planned to leave the gift. But when he saw the boy's fever-flushed face, when he heard the quiet wheeze behind every breath, he was thrown back decades, to a mop closet behind a budget hotel, to a woman, his mother, scrubbing floors in silence while he curled beside a bucket, hidden from the manager. No daycare, no sick days, no help. Only her humming softly, pretending the rags were puppets to make him laugh through the fever. He'd never forgotten that. The next morning, Jenna opened her locker and froze. Inside was an inhaler, same brand Noah used, fully sealed, and a folded note. For the breaths that matter most. There was no name. She swallowed hard and looked around. No one seemed to notice. That same day, she was handed a lunch voucher by the front desk clerk. For you and your son, the woman said. It's already covered, through the end of the month. By who? The woman shrugged. They didn't say. Jenna stood there stunned, the paper warm in her palm. That afternoon, the rain returned with a vengeance. When her shift ended, she bundled Noah in her arms, preparing to sprint to the bus stop. But when she stepped outside, a black umbrella leaned neatly against the wall, tagged with her name in clean, neat handwriting. She looked around. No one was nearby. Only Elias, watching silently from the far end of the hallway, turned away before she could meet his gaze. He didn't want thanks. He didn't want recognition. He just remembered what it felt like to be invisible. And this time, he refused to let another child feel the same. It happened on a quiet Thursday afternoon. Jenna returned from polishing the lobby glass doors to find Noah waiting in the break room, his sketch pad in hand, eyes sparkling with pride. "I made something," he said, holding out a folded paper. She opened it slowly. A crayon drawing filled the page. A tall man holding a big umbrella, standing over a woman and a little boy in the rain. The woman's hair was wild. The boy had a stuffed lion in one hand. The man's smile was quiet but kind. At the top, in large block letters, Noah had written, "Thank you, Mr. Umbrella Man." Jenna didn't need to ask who it was meant for. Later that evening, when most had gone home, she knocked gently on Elias Monroe's office door. He looked up from his desk, surprised, as she stepped in with the drawing in hand. "I think this belongs to you," she said. Elias took it carefully. His thumb traced the edge of the paper. His face, usually so guarded, softened. "I'll keep it safe," he said quietly. He did. He taped it to the inside of his locker door the next morning, and from that day on, something between them changed. It wasn't fast. It wasn't obvious. But it was real. They started exchanging small words in the hallway. Simple nods became quiet questions. One afternoon, Jenna found herself staying behind a few minutes after her shift, just to help Elias rearrange a supply shelf. Another day, he offered her a thermos of black coffee and said, "You look like you slept as badly as I did." Eventually, their conversations deepened. He told her about his childhood, about a mother who worked night shifts and left him in closets to keep him safe, about sandwiches saved from leftover banquets, about how no one noticed them, until one person did. Jenna listened quietly, her fingers curled around her mug. Then one afternoon, Elias looked at her and said, "I was Noah, and my mom, she was you." His voice didn't tremble, but Jenna saw something flicker in his eyes, something fragile, buried for years. She didn't reply right away. Instead, she whispered, "She must have been incredible." "She was," Elias said, "but she never got seen, not the way she deserved." He looked at Jenna for a long moment. "But you will." In that silence between two people shaped by storms, something began to bloom. Not romance, not yet, but a deep and wordless understanding. Two people who had once walked through rain alone, now for the first time, weren't. The warehouse floor had never looked so bright. Folding chairs lined the polished concrete. Blue and white balloons, the company's signature colors, bobbed above a makeshift stage. Laughter and the scent of cafeteria cake filled the air. Employees mingled, switching between Spanish and English as music played softly in the background. Jenna stood near the back, her uniform pressed and clean, her nerves fluttering like paper in the wind. Beside her, Noah clutched her hand, wearing a button-down shirt 2 sizes too big, freshly ironed by Maribel that morning. She wasn't expecting anything. She was just happy to be included. Then Elias stepped up to the microphone. The room fell into silence. He looked calm, steady as always, but when he spoke, his voice carried something deeper, like memory wrapped in steel. "I want to share a story," he began, "not from a resume or a business report, but from my own life." He paused, eyes scanning the room before settling on Jenna. "Just for a moment. When I was a child, my mother worked nights as a janitor. We didn't have childcare, so she'd hide me in mop closets with a pillow and tell me stories while she scrubbed bathroom tiles. I remember the smell of bleach more than bedtime stories. I remember learning what hard work looked like before I even knew how to spell the word." The room was still, his words pulling everyone inward. "She never asked for help," Elias continued, "and no one ever offered. But her strength, it never left me. It's the reason I stand here today." He took a breath. "A few weeks ago, I met someone who reminded me of her, a young mother, exhausted but unbreakable, cleaning floors while raising her son with more love and quiet courage than I've ever seen." His voice thickened, but he didn't falter. "I'm proud to work beside her, and today it's my honor to recognize her." He turned fully toward the back of the room. "Jenna Monroe, please come forward." Jenna froze. Noah squeezed her hand. "Mama, that's you!" Eyes turned. Applause began. It started soft, then grew, rolling through the warehouse like thunder. Jenna walked slowly toward the stage, heart pounding, hands shaking. When she reached Elias, he stepped back and gestured to the crowd. "Effective today," he announced, Jenna Monroe was promoted to supervising custodian. Cheers erupted. Jenna tried to smile, but her throat burned. It wasn't the title. It wasn't the stage. It was the first time someone had said her name like it mattered. Then Elias held up a second envelope. "And one more thing," he said, glancing at Noah, whose eyes were wide with wonder. "Silencia Services is granting a full academic scholarship to Noah Monroe, from elementary school through college." Gasps echoed. A standing ovation followed. Ovation. Some employees wiped their eyes. Others clapped harder. Jenna's knees wobbled. She wasn't crying for the promotion. She was crying because, for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like she was surviving. She felt like she was seen. Elias didn't say anything more. He didn't need to. He simply placed the envelope in her hand, met her eyes with a soft, steady look, and stepped back. As the crowd clapped, Jenna looked down at Noah, who was beaming up at her. "I told you superheroes were real," he whispered. She laughed through tears and pulled him close. And in that moment she realized this wasn't the end of a struggle. It was the beginning of something she never dared to imagine. Belonging. The rain came fast that evening, thick sheets that blurred the glass windows and turned the parking lot into a mirror of streetlight and puddles. Jenna stayed late to finish her reports. The office was quiet, most of the staff already gone. Noah was in the break room with Maribel, giggling over a cartoon, safe and warm. As Jenna headed toward the locker room, she noticed something just outside Elias's office. On the bench sat a small box, wrapped in brown paper and tied with a thin piece of twine. Her name was written in careful, deliberate handwriting across the top. She looked around. No one was in sight. Hands trembling, she opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet. Simple, elegant. On the inner band, a single word was engraved: always. She stared at it, blinking hard. Behind her, a voice spoke gently. "I was going to leave it in your locker," Elias said, "but then I thought, maybe it should be given, not left." She turned. He stood there in the hallway, raincoat draped over one arm, his eyes warm and calm, but uncertain. "I'm not here to save you," he said softly, stepping closer. "I just want you to know. I'll always be someone you can lean on." Jenna didn't speak right away. She held the bracelet in her palm like it might vanish if she moved too fast. Then she looked up, into the face of the man who had never tried to rescue her, but had always stood beside her. Not a savior, not a boss, just someone who saw her. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't desperate. It was real, a quiet kind of choosing. He held her just as firmly, like he'd been waiting to breathe. Then a small voice echoed down the hallway. "Mama!" Noah came skidding around the corner, hair tousled, cheeks flushed from laughter. When he saw them embracing, he slowed to a stop, eyes wide. "You're smiling, Mama," he said breathlessly. "You look like a superhero now." Jenna laughed, an open, bright laugh that echoed in the quiet space. She opened one arm and Noah ran into it without hesitation. Elias knelt down beside them and pulled the boy into their circle. And there, under the soft hallway light and the patter of rain beyond the windows, the three of them stood close. No titles, no labels, just warmth. No engagement, no promises sealed with rings. Only a bracelet, a whispered always, and the kind of connection that didn't need fanfare to be forever. They had found something greater than survival. They had found family, quiet, imperfect, and entirely their own. In today's fast-paced world, stories like Jenna's remind us that resilience isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet mother carrying her child through the rain. And kindness? It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's a pencil box left on a break room table, a hot meal quietly paid for, a bracelet engraved with a single word: always. This story speaks to something deeply American, the belief in second chances, and that no one should be invisible just because they're struggling. Many of us have been Jenna. Some of us were Noah. And maybe, just maybe, we've had someone like Elias walk quietly beside us. But here's the real question. Would you stop for someone in the rain? Would you give, even if no one noticed? Let's talk about it. If this story moved you, share in the comments. A time someone showed you kindness when you needed it most, or when you were someone else's quiet hero. We'd love to hear your voice. Thank you for staying with us until the end. If you believe in stories that restore hope, that remind us we're never truly alone, please like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who needs it. Because here at Warm Soul Stories, we believe in telling the stories that speak not just to the mind, but to the heart. And remember, sometimes the smallest act changes everything. We'll see you in the next story.